you have a small metal fabrication shop and have a lot of plasma cut or laser cut parts to clean up, usually your first choice is a grinder. This is time consuming and really takes it out on you. Always been interested in these time savers that they call them, which is basically a big belt sander with some finishing flap disc inside of them, and they're 10,000 plus. When you look at inside of them, kind of understand why. I always thought, man, there has to be an easier way to get this kind of finish quicker than using a grinder. Well, leave it up to China, and they give you these TikTok videos of smaller versions of these conveyor-fed machines that have a belt grinder on them, but they're pretty small, and I want something that has to be able to do larger pieces. So I've always had this idea: is why can't you use a drum sander that's usually used in the wood industry and put a rubber backing on it and use a metal grit? Well, I've been searching around Facebook for these used, and you can find them around $1,000 under. But then I landed on this that was $200. I was like, I can't pass this up. Of course, there was some question if it was going to work or not. So I was able to power it up, and lo and behold, I got a belt on it, and it works. Temperamental, had to replace some air lines on it and things of that nature, but it seems like it was going to work. And it has a rubber wheel in it, and that rubber wheel is important because it allows the sanding belt to be able to conform and not basically jam up on the metal slag. This machine uses a air basically diaphragm that isolates the belt back and forth to keep the belt on track. So there was a lot of figuring out how to tune that system. I had some air leaks that was causing me some problems, but once I got that figured out, the system was working correctly. As you can see here, this is with 60 grit sandpaper, and about 2 passes was giving me no dross on the laser cut part, and I was very happy with that. Here you see me feeding the part directly in. While this still works, I found that the best way to do this is actually put the part in more of an angle, and the dross that's on the trailing side of the part gets cleaned up faster than the leaning side of the part. So when I pass it first through, then I rotate it so that the leaning edge of the part is on the back side the next pass. And then also with the parts that are long enough, I try to put one edge of the belt or part on one side of the belt, and then when it gets all the way through, the end of the part is on the other edge of the belt. This gives a finish that is kind of more of like a cross hatch, but also it uses more of the belt, so I'm not wearing out one part of the belt at a time. These parts are also laser cut using air, so the dross is smaller than, say, a plasma cut part, but also it is more firmly attached than plasma slag. Here you can see the pressure rollers are about 8 inches apart. I've found that anything 6 inches and below will basically get caught in between those two spaces, so anything smaller than 6 inches long, I can't use this machine. But 6 inches plus it's great. Another thing is you can see that it's an open end design, and we'll get to that later. So you're able to use bigger parts. That's the 60 grit. This is the 37 grit that I bought, thinking, wow, rougher sandpaper must be a quicker removal of slag, which is true. But you'll see here the finish isn't as smooth as the 60 grit. With the 37 grit, if you were going to use a heavy epoxy paint, this actually probably would work out pretty well because it would actually rough up the surface to a point where you're going to get very good at adhesion of the paint. But if you're doing another post process where you're sandblasting um, before you're painting, then this 60 grit seems like it does a fine job. As you see, this definitely is removing the mill scale, and it gives it a rougher finish. Still have to do at least 2 passes with the 37 grit. I think if I can replace or reduce the speed of the belt, there's only one speed on this machine, but if I replace that motor with like a variable speed motor, or put a bigger sprocket that and slow the belt down, you might be able to get this down to a single pass operation. But like I said before, the leading edge of the slag doesn't seem like it gets sanded as quickly as the trailing edge side, so I think you still have to do 2 passes on this machine. With the bigger parts, you'll see here that you have to do multiple passes, but also it stalls out the machine and shuts the drum off. And the neat thing is the conveyor will still bring the part out, and it automatically shuts off, but you have to reduce the amount of height of the bed, so the drum does not stall out, which usually, as you can see here, I had to probably do 3 or 4 passes to get the slag off, just because that I wasn't able to put as much pressure on the sanding disc as the smaller parts. But still, it took only probably a good 2 minutes to sand this part, get all the slag off of it, where a hand grinder would have taken me 10 if not 20 times longer to get the slag off of it. And also it's given me a nice uniform finish, where a hand grinder, you're not going to get, you're going to have some high spots, you're going to have some low spots, things of that nature. Later I was able to figure out how to feed this at more of an angle, so I was using less passes, so I was able to do it in about 6 passes instead of probably 12 that you see in this video. This is a 15-inch wide belt drum sander, so in theory you can do something 30 inches wide. Would like something to be wider in the future, but you can't argue with something that was able to get for $200. The sanding belts are almost as expensive as the machine itself was, for 6 belts, and I was just using the aluminum oxide belts. That's more probably used for wood finishing than metal finishing, but I decided to buy these cheaper belts at first, because I knew I was going to probably chew up a belt or two to get the oscillating feature worked out, which I at least chewed up one and a half belts doing it, to be able to get the belt to track right, because when it doesn't track right, it will eat itself up pretty quick. So they do have more expensive belts that are, the blue belts that are zirconium, I believe, that will last longer. And so when I run through these belts, I'll be able to use those belts. So these are basically the crosshatch pattern I've been able to achieve Really happy with the finish and the dross removal. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.